Welcome to the Longlands Club and Boro Fan TV's Monday night show. I'm James Hutchinson, passing a fitness test this week. Joining me this week's Joe Scott. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Cheers, mate.
Since our last appearance on the show, Boro have gone 3 games undefeated, picking up 5 points. As well as looking back at those matches where we got those 5 points from, we're going to assess Boro's start of the season as we've already reached the first international break. And Boro are in 18th position in the league, so there's lots for us to get through tonight, Joe.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
So we'll rewind the clock 2 weeks. We played Wigan on the Tuesday night, and it was a pretty nervy encounter. We got our first win of the season, but do you think that type of game is something we might have to get used to this season, Joe?
It's going to have to be, considering the fact, it was our first win of the season, which undoubtedly most of our fans will be happy with, but it was a nervy game nonetheless, because apart from a Sombalonga's goal, there wasn't really that much to enjoy from a Boro fan's perspective, or a Wigan fans perspective in my point, because up to that point Wigan never scored a goal all season, and that showed.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest game. I mean, there was a few changes to the team that started that match. Marcus Brown came in again, and I think it's safe to say he's still finding his feet at the club, having signed for us this summer from Oxford. And some would even say he was maybe fortunate to stay on the pitch in that game, because he could have had 2 yellow cards in the first half, couldn't he?
Could have. He was walking the thin line throughout the first half, but it's one of them. You're just going to have to keep your temperament in the game, and he almost lost it in that midweek game against Wigan. Yeah. But is for what we've seen of him so far, he looks a very lively winger when he came to the club.
Yeah, and I think, like you say there, all the new lads, and we'll talk about them individually further on in the show, they've all got to be given time to settle. A lot of them have made a big step up coming from clubs that are in League One. You can't automatically, very rarely do you get 3 or 4 players from a lower league step into a team from a higher level and just take to it straight away. It's very difficult to do that, isn't it?
Yeah. Mark Bowler seems to have adapted well since he came into the club. But and obviously Dykesteel as well, even though he had that one championship start when he was at Charlton against Blackburn, and he picked up a known goal, unfortunately. But it's this, I've seen signs, from what we saw, he's definitely the sort of fullback that we needed.
Yeah. In terms of the crowds at the 2 home games with Wigan and Millwall, there was 18,000 there against Wigan, just over 19 against Millwall. What do you make of the attendances at the home games so far this season? Do you think maybe some people have thought, you know what, I'm not paying for a club that aren't going to be challenging, in their opinion, or even challenging for promotion? It's a lot of money to say the walk-up's £30, the cheapest ticket. Do you blame people for not going, or do you think the team and the club need to be given a little bit more time?
It's tough to call at this point, because obviously fans do expect a lot from the Boro, basically. But you have to give it time, with Jonathan Woodgate, it's his first season as in management. Obviously there's going to be a lot of teething problems going into the team, and it takes some time to work, and some Boro fans obviously don't get the point so far. But it's at the end of the day, once time and all them takes toll, I think we can march on and do well. But as far as it's one of those. Yeah.
Do you
one
think
of those difficult to call.
It is a strange one, because obviously just over 2 years ago we were in the Premier League, and we've had 2 seasons since then where one season we got to the playoffs, last season we narrowly missed getting in the playoffs. So do you think now people are just starting to revise maybe their target and starting to think, do you know what, we're not going to be challenging for promotion? Or do you still think there's Boro fans out there that think, oh, do you know what, we should be pushing for promotion? Or do you think most people have thought, do you know what, we're in a rebuilding period now? Yeah,
I think, like I said, I think we're in a rebuilding period, because I know we tried for promotion for the last couple of seasons, either it's via the playoffs or try to get to automatics, but it just never worked out those 2 seasons, and it would go to frustrate Boro fans to think that this season, I think our main aim this season is just to maintain a top half finish with the squad that we got. Yeah. So I can see the frustrations, but it's just a part of rebuilding process. I mean, just build on towards challenging for probably at least 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's a necessary thing the club have to do, don't they, Joe? Because the money's not there to finance at the level that we've maybe done in the past. Obviously, the parachute payments have gone, and the club have got to go down this different route, and I think we've just got to show a little bit more patience, haven't we, with it?
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
Wigan, we got the 3 points, which were very welcome. And some would say in that game they were probably the better team to begin with. They created the chances. And I think the same was also evident against Millwall a week ago when they came here. We had to rely on some saves from Darren Randolph and some power finishing from Millwall.
Yeah.
Does it concern you, though, that maybe further on in the season where we're playing teams, say, that are at the top of the table, got maybe a little bit more quality than Wigan and Millwall, that they might punish us if we start games slowly?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them types of games that you have to start on the front foot no matter what team you play against, either the top or the bottom. Wigan and Millwall, for example, most Boro fans would consider him like the less challenging out of the teams, like say, like the Leeds and the Swanseas, etc. But you have to take your chances, but there was some moments in the game where we never took our chances. Like Millwall started off on the front foot straight away. A couple of weeks ago now, should I say. But you just have to go for it. No matter what team, you're going to have to go for it. And the last two games prior, we never showed it until in the latter moments of the game.
Yeah. And that Millwall game, we saw Leo involved in his first spat of the season. Neil Harris was sent from the dugout to the stands. What was your take on that incident involving our goalkeeping coach?
I don't know. We all know Leo's not the guy to get on the wrong side of if you're in the opposition dugout. But like I say, with Neil Harris, he's one of the one of the underrated managers in this division.
Yeah.
And I think it's the Millwall sort of temper that got him flared up, and unfortunately, he came up to one end of Leo, so to speak, and then the referee took scene to that and must have sent Neil Harris off because. To be honest, I think the ref must have been more afraid of Leo than Neil Harris, to be honest.
I wouldn't want to cross Neil Harris. I mean, like I say, he was more than keen to stand up to Leo and he tried to get the ball off him and stuff like that. But yeah, that seemed to reignite the game a little bit for us, I think, that day.
Yeah.
But I think the change at half-time that Jonathan Woodgate gave us a bit of better shape and a bit of balance to the team. He brought Marvin Johnson on for Marcus Brown at half-time. I just thought we came out with a much better balance to our side that second half. We had something down the right-hand side with Johnson. He teamed up well with Howson, who's had a good start of the season, hasn't he, at right-back?
Yeah, like I said, going back to Johnson, like both him and Paddy McNair really showed that what they're capable of this season, because we never saw any of that last season when under Tony Pulis. And I think I definitely think the loan spell at Sheffield United definitely helped Johnson, and Paddy's just come onto his own in a flourish. It's
an interesting point you make there, Joe, because like you say, Johnson went to Sheffield United last year.
Yeah.
He got a bit of game time, but not much game time.
Yeah.
And McNair, the few times he was involved, seemed to be playing either at right back, centre half. He played anywhere but the position I thought we bought him for, which was a midfielder that was going to score goals. Yet those two have offered at times our brightest spark in games, haven't they?
They have. That we're going to later on, like Paddy McNair, I think he's shown, from what I've seen of him, from the start of the season, I think he's one of them, I think he's playing in the right position now, compared to what Pulis was putting him in last season. So I think we're Boro fans now expecting high more now from Paddy McNair. Now he's playing in his natural position, which we obviously we would like to see, and the same with Johnson as well, because he can normally play like the left wing back, winger position, and there were some sides, particularly against Luton, he could become one of our vital players from now until the end of the season.
If I was being critical of Marvin Johnson, I would say at the minute, but I think it'll come with games and more time, that he's maybe only done it in little spells in matches. He's had really good spells where he's been involved in the game a lot and he's done something which has sort of influenced the game, but then he almost seems to disappear from the game a little bit. And I think that the challenge for Marvin Johnson is maybe to deliver it on a more regular basis and for a longer period of time in a game. But like I say, he certainly contributed to our start of the season. Another repeat from the Millwall game in terms of the Wigan match was the referee. I mean, I'm not one to criticise referees. They have a tough job, don't get me wrong, and I wouldn't want to do it. But the referee came in for a lot of flack and criticism in the Wigan game for some debatable decisions, and then against Millwall last week there was at least two claims
for
penalties which I thought were pretty strong, the two in the second half.
I think Millwall had a claim for something as well.
Yeah, they did, and they had a claim for a penalty, but I think I don't know, it's a theory I've got. Do you think maybe the decisions would have been different if Tony Pulis was our manager? Do you think maybe officials would have been swayed or influenced by a manager such as Pulis in the dugout than they are with, say, Jonathan Woodgate, who was a rookie in that role? Or do you think, for whatever reason, we're just not getting a lot of luck with referee decisions at the moment?
Yeah, it's tough to tell with referees, you know. I just call them the failed footballers and never had sex, but...
Oh,
you know,
Joe, man, that's a bit below the belt, that, mate.
That's what I call them from time to time, but, you know, it's difficult to tell, you know, when it comes to referees and managers. It depends if you're more like the seasoned ones like Pulis or Warnock, for example, who can get in the face of them. Yeah. They'll be very easy to, you know, intimidate, but you've got the likes of Woodgate who... say like him and Lampard, for example, who could just stand in the dugout and go, that with the arms folded, and just do now.
Yeah.
And that's could play a part in the decisions of the referees.
Possibly, yeah. But like I say, I think the 2 goals against Brentford that we weren't given, and then those 2 penalties against Millwall, we came away with 1 point from those 2 games. Arguably, we could have had more if certain decisions had gone our way. But as we'll see in the Bristol City game in a minute, sometimes they even themselves out, don't they? You get decisions in other games which go for you, which you don't on other days.
Yeah.
I think the unfortunate thing that day was against Millwall, it took so long to take the lead, and we took the lead with a fantastic team goal finished off by Paddy McNair. And then it was just disappointing to let the lead slip so soon afterwards to a sloppy set piece, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think... that we're going to in a sec. I think obviously we played the attacking football which we've been craving for a long time, but there is going to be a flaw to that in terms, you know, with the defence, and set pieces have been our Achilles heel as of late. You know, don't get me wrong. You know, there's some players that can leave people for free headers and people not marking certain players. And against Millwall, I think Ryan Shotton got a bit of a slack for leaving Tom Bradshaw on his own to tap in from close range. But like I said, I think it's going to be our main flaw this season, you know, because some clubs consider us, you know, the best defence in the league for the last 2 seasons. I think under Woodgate's role now, we started to play more attacking floor, and then
it's going to change. It's going to come at a cost, that, isn't it? Yeah, because I think, in fairness, there we did have a good defence the last 2 seasons, but I think we were set up that way. We had defenders there, and then we also had like defenders in front of them, more or less in midfield, and we were very, very compact. Hard to break down, but that prevented us going forward and delivering stuff, which we're now getting, and it's like a trade-off, isn't it? We look a lot more threatening going forward, but that's obviously going to take something away from your defensive responsibilities. And like I say, I know you've mentioned there about Ryan Shotton. I think defensively, he's done some good work in the last couple of games. He's made some good clearances, good challenges. One feature of his game, which I think Ryan would probably admit to himself, and he's not the only one, I think you see teams are often quite happy to let him have the ball, Danny Ayala have the ball, Adam Clayton, whilst others, they may be quicker to close down. And that's probably why we've been crying out for someone like Dale Fry to come back into the team who's maybe a little bit more comfortable on the ball, so he can maybe start off some of our attacks from further back.
Definitely.
Do you agree with that, Joe?
Yeah, obviously you're going to have, I think Woodgate's going to be rotating central defenders around probably from now till nearer towards the end of the season, because you got Fry, Ayala and Shotton as well. But nowadays, sometimes he can move Shotton to right back, say if Dyke still gets injured or something like that. So if I had have a preferred choice at the moment, I would just go with Ayala and Shotton as the main centre backs. Right.
So you would go with them rather than Fry. You wouldn't start with Fry.
It's one of those we're going to in a sec, because I noticed from last season, I think there's some points throughout the game where Fry is capable of making a couple of mistakes, but I will get to that in a bit.
Okay, no problem. Well, going back to those 2 games then, we got 4 points from Wigan and Millwall at home. Do you think that's an acceptable return, that, Joe? Bear in mind we only had 1 point before those 2 games, so to walk away with 4 from 6, were you happy with that?
Yeah, it gives you a bit of confidence after the poor run of results against Brentford and Blackburn leading up to it. Like 4 points from 6 games, I would take that as a big confidence booster.
Yeah, I think it was acceptable. I mean, it was disappointing we didn't end up with all 6 after you take the lead with 20 odd minutes to go against Millwall, but in the corresponding games last year we got 4 points from those 2 games. And like you say, I think you just want to get on the board, don't you? Get that first win, that's great. Now, obviously, now we want to be looking for our first away win, but after Saturday we've gone 3 games undefeated. It's just trying to build on that confidence and momentum now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the weekend, Bristol City, we've just touched on there. Arguably, probably our toughest game of the season so far. They'd won their last 3 games. There was some surprise though pre-match. There was no Johnny Howson, no Danny Ayala. Dale Fry came back to the side as skipper.
Yeah.
What did you make of that? What did you make of those decisions?
From when I first looked at it, you know, with Howson and Ayala not being in the squad, unless they were injured at some point in training before the game, that's probably what explained the absence.
Yeah.
Fry skipper, but I was a little bit questionable about that because my initial thought when I looked at the lineup, I would have gone with Adam Clayton as the captain for that game.
I think a lot of people probably would have done. Yeah. But do you think maybe that's Jonathan Woodgate looking longer term and just thinking, do you know what, in the future, and I think he's come out after the game and said that Dale Fry will be a future captain of the club.
Yeah.
And I think centre-halves often do make good skippers, good captains that can see what's going on in front of them. I've got no qualms with what you've said there about Adam Clayton, because I think Adam Clayton could take the armband on, but it may be maybe pointing more to a longer-term strategy that maybe having Dale Fry as captain. It was an open and enterprising game, to be honest. I mean, it was easy on the eye, and I think people, even neutrals that have watched it, that'll have been 2 games they've watched the Boro this season on Sky, at Luton away and Bristol City away.
Yeah.
They'll be thinking, well, this wasn't the Middlesbrough we watched last season, is it?
No, definitely not.
I mean, I thought McNair again had an impressive game, pulling the strings, and he was linking up well with Britton, Ashley Fletcher. However, like you've said there, defensive mistakes maybe turned 3 points into 1. But I think, like you said, Joe, this season's going to be one where you have to take the rough with the smooth a little bit, don't you?
Yeah.
Things like the fullbacks, I think the fullbacks look good going forward, but maybe aren't as effective defensively at the moment. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah. Dykesdale and Bowler do look good, you know, when going forward in that. But as far as going back as concerns, I think there's a little bit of jitters in there in terms of keeping up with Bristol City wingers, because that Nicholas and that Eliasson, he was a nightmare throughout the game.
Yeah, they had a lot of threats going forward, but like I say, they've just won 3 games, and against teams that have it, they won at Derby, they won at Hull, beat QPR at home.
Yeah, they were 4th at the time.
Yeah, I think if you'd have offered a lot of Boro fans a point before the game on Saturday, they'd have been quite happy to take that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, definitely, you know, considering, you know, throughout the game, you know, their goals, obviously, I said about Fry, there were signs there were nerves, you know, when he took on the captain's role. I think that's why he left them, you know, for the 3 headers from Palmer and Tommy Rowe. There were signs that there were nerves there, but the main talking point going into the game and during the game was obviously Britta Sombalonga.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the team showed a lot of character. I mean, they went 1-0 down and they turned it into a 2-1 lead, like you say. Imagine talking to Britta Sombalonga. I didn't hear Jonathan Woodgate after the game saying he wanted VAR back in again.
Yeah.
Because that was a touch offside that on Saturday. So sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't, do you?
Yeah, we got the look. I think we got the look of the green. When Sombalonga scored his goal.
Yeah, but were you disappointed? Like I say again, second Saturday in a row, we've taken the lead, and in the last quarter of the game, we've let it slip and ended up getting 1 point instead of 3.
Yeah. Like I said, I think I would have taken a point from Bristol anyway, considering the form they were in at the time. But going into the international break as well, I think it's sort of the right time to get the squad together and say, can we improve, you know, the next games that we've got coming up in this month and going forward. So, at the end of the day, I'm happy to go into the international break with those on the back of a draw and a couple of draws and a couple of wins.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. I mean, what impressed you most with the performance on Saturday, Joe? What pleased you most about it?
I think, you know, first half, you know, we never really got any luck going forward. Obviously, Fletcher hitting the post, and then we didn't look much of a threat throughout, and obviously they capitalised with the Palmer free header. Second half, I think, was a much improvement, you know, because in particular, you know, Sombalonga, Johnson, McNair, and like I said, Dykesdale and Bowler, when they went forward, they really impressed me throughout the game. Obviously, very important for Sombalonga as well. Obviously, his 100th league goal, league career goal, and plus the birth of his baby son on top of it.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Woodgate came out and said something about he should be his wife should be having babies like that, and he should be dealing with stuff like that more often, because he had an inspired second half performance on Saturday, didn't he?
Yeah.
Great. But like you say, I was impressed by the fact that I thought we looked comfortable in possession, and what
did,
really pleased me was we look a goal threat, and for a long time we've not looked a threat either at home or away over the last 2 seasons. Whereas on Saturday, you always thought there was a goal in us, and even in the second half, as the game progressed, I always thought, you know what, we look the stronger team here, and you've got to a good side there, Bristol City, who, like many people have said, have been building year on year, which hopefully we're going to do.
Yeah, probably they'll be up there at the end of the season, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think they will. Lee Johnson's had 3 or 4 years to build that squad together. He spent a bit of money this summer as well.
And plus, I think he's one of the top of the most underrated managers in the league.
Yeah, I think he is a good young coach. He's doing well year on year, progressing every year at Bristol City. And we took the game to them. And I know he came out after the match and said something about, I was disappointed that game was there for them to win. Well, it was also there for us to win. We could have quite easily won that game on Saturday.
Yeah.
Yet there wasn't too many games I came away from last season, certainly away from home, thinking, do you know what? I thought we had plenty of goals in us there.
Yeah.
Yet we did on Saturday. So,
and plus, I probably said this on the show last season, Asombalonga needed the support, and I think Ashley Fletcher and Johnson and a couple of others as well, I think he's got that much confidence now that he has the support.
Yeah, he certainly seems to be responding to the new approach, the manager.
Yeah.
He looks a lot happier on the pitch. Now, hopefully we can hold on to Brit for as long as we can. I know we spoke about this before we came on air tonight about let's see what January brings, because there may be some changes to the squad then. But at the moment, he's certainly contributing. That was, for me, his best performance of the season so far, that was Saturday, and he was rewarded with a good finish. Whether he was offside or not, he certainly took his goal well, and it was a good finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he looked a threat throughout as well.
Yeah, good point, mate, yeah. So, other things that Gary Johnson mentioned after the game on Saturday, he mentioned that Boro could still be a side that's pushing for top 6 this season. Do you agree with that?
It's tough to call this season, because everyone's expecting us, from our perspective and a neutral perspective, we're supposed to be challenging for the top 6, but with the funds we got and the finished squad we got, I don't think that'll be possible, I think, this season. But if we finish in the top half, either just outside the playoffs, I still consider that as a good achievement for us this season.
Yeah, I think those people that are maybe still seeing us as a top 6 team are doing so maybe on past reputation.
Yeah.
And they maybe seeing a team that was in the Premiership a while ago, was in there 2 seasons ago, and has spent a lot of money in the past. That's a different club to the one we're at now. And I think this year, like you say, Joe, I think if we get a top half finish, especially with the size of squad we've got, it's like 18, 19 man first team squad, to sustain that over a 46 game league season, you're asking a lot there. You're asking to be really lucky with things like injuries and suspensions, aren't you?
Yeah.
And, as we touched on earlier, the January transfer window, you don't know what's going to happen there. There may be players coming in, but we may also lose players then.
Yeah, that's, like you mentioned, Asombalonga, but Darren Randolph's going to be the main one. Whether we keep him in January, if we do keep him, it'll be somewhat of a miracle, to be honest.
Yeah, because there's things like the Euros take place next summer, and he'll be wanting to be involved with Ireland should they qualify.
Yeah.
And he may be wanting to up his profile to make sure he's maybe getting the starting spot for them in that championships. He'll be also then, next summer he'll be entering the final year of his contract, so maybe the club might think then, if we're going to get a decent transfer fee for him, we have to sell him in January, which, as fans, you don't want to lose your best players.
Oh yeah, obviously.
But it may well be that the club at that point have to take an offer which they can't refuse, so...
Maybe persuade Robbie Keane, get him to swing him to stay.
That's maybe why Robbie Keane's here, mate, you don't know. But... So, we've got our first international break already. I know some people don't like international breaks at all, and where do you stand on that, the international breaks, Joe?
Mixed bag, like obviously you and I myself like to look at the non-league perspective of things there, but obviously it gives us a chance to put our feet up, watch the internationals on the box, or even go to a non-league game, just help support our local clubs elsewhere.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
I don't think international breaks are so bad now. No, England aren't a half bad team. I think they're half decent to watch now. I think back in the day it wasn't so good to watch when you had to put up with that for a couple of games. But now they are a much better side. They're enjoyable to watch.
Definitely after the World Cup.
Yeah, but we've got 6 points to Boro from the 6 games we've had. We're in 18th position. Do you think that's a fair reflection on our start of the season where we are in the league, or do you think it could have potentially been higher, or could we be more? Or?
Could have been a bit more, but I think it's... quite generous that we're in 18th at the minute,
Right.
considering the start we were on. I think it's like 1 win, 2 draws and 2 losses, I think, isn't it?
1 win, 3 draws, 2 losses, yeah.
So if you put that into perspective, I think it's okay position where we're at the minute. Obviously, there's teams that started worse than us, so...
Yeah.
18th, I'd definitely say it's a very generous position for us to this point.
What I would say, Joe, is I think after Saturday, and I know you shouldn't get too high with good performance and too low with a poor performance, but I think after Saturday, Bristol City are more convinced now that they are on the right track. There's progress being made. For me, out of the 6 games, there's only been really 1 game where I've come away really disappointed, and that was Blackburn away.
Yeah.
I thought we were poor at Blackburn. But like we said there, if you see more performances like the one at Bristol City, including stuff like elements of the games against Brentford, Luton away.
Yeah.
If you can see progress being made, you can accept that, can't you?
Yeah, I definitely accept that. No ends and buts about it.
Yeah. But I think the key is, obviously, dealings in transfer windows. I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves here in terms of January and next summer. But what you hope is, yes, they're making progress, but you've got to hope that the manager's also supported in this as well, isn't it? Because you might get away with maybe one season where you can run on an 18, 19-man squad, but I wouldn't like to think maybe next season, if we're still in the Championship, which I'm pretty sure we will be, but I don't think you'd get away with another season in the Championship with 18, 19-men squads, especially if you've lost players of the like of Randolph or Sombalonga, and you haven't got the money to fully replace them with players similar to that. You need a decent squad, don't you, in the Championship?
Yeah, I would consider something like 25 or pretty much to the 30 mark to consider, that's the perfect, first team squad we can choose from. But like I said, we've only got 18 and we can't just rely on that, or even some prospects out of the academy.
It's a big step up for them, isn't it? Yeah. And maybe next year some of those prospects from the academy will be able to go into the first team squad and maybe contribute a lot more. I know there's more and more appearing on the benches.
Yeah, Stephen Walker.
Connor Maley. We've got 1 or 2 others as well being involved. We've obviously had Hayden Coulson being involved as well. But again, they need more time. They need to be given time to develop as footballers, and then they'll be able to contribute more and more, won't they?
Even if we have to send a couple of out on loan, it'll still help them with their confidence.
Yeah. So, international break reached. Do you think anyone would have predicted Swansea and Charlton as the top 2 in the Championship? I think I had Charlton down to get relegated in our pre-season prediction. So I know absolutely nothing. There you go.
I think Swansea. I think this is the season where they want to bounce back from, because obviously last season there were a few niggles in their squad, but Swansea I can definitely see getting promoted at the end of the season if they keep up the form they're in. Charlton, they're on a good run in a minute, but I just don't see them probably bouncing in the automatic spots. Maybe playoffs, but not the top.
They've both surprised me, I'll be honest, Joe. I mean, Swansea, I thought they've brought in a new manager in Steve Cooper, and he's doing a great job, but I'll be honest, I didn't have them anywhere up there this year, in my opinion. And Charlton, like you say, they just seem to have continued on from the momentum they had at the end of last season in League One. They've had a great start. I've seen today that Huddersfield have been linked with an interest in Lee Bowyer as manager, but Bowyer's distanced himself from that and said he's quite happy at Charlton. But I mean, they've had a fantastic start of the season. Like you say, the big test for them will be, can they sustain it? Because it's a tough league. I mean, anybody else impressed you in the Championship aside from those 2 that are the top 2 at the minute?
I think, obviously, our next opponents, Reading, have surprised me this season.
They've had a good start, that's a good point. That again, a team that probably weren't as fancy, but then all of a sudden they seemed to spend a lot of money, didn't they? Towards the end, they brought George Puskas in on loan from Inter Milan. And they seem to have developed a decent little squad there as well. But as you say, early days. What about the clubs that were maybe highly fancied? The likes of Leeds, West Brom, Derby, teams like that were expected to push this year.
Yeah, Leeds, they kept, like the same squad that they have last season. Obviously, a couple of changes. They brought that Nketiah on loan from Arsenal.
Yeah, good signing.
Apart from that, Leeds, they could be up there, considering... it's kind of like a system, stick to the same squad. Obviously, you've lost Pontus Jansson in the summer. They're going to be strong contenders for promotion, I think. Definitely. And then as surprises at the other end of the table, you've got 2 teams that haven't
won a game yet. Stoke City, which has massively surprised me. I mean, I thought they would do well last year. They didn't.
Yeah.
They changed Gary Rowett, brought in
Nathan
Jones, highly rated from Luton, did a great job at Luton.
Yeah, to be fair, I didn't know why he left Luton, to be honest, considering the push they're putting him in.
He may well be thinking that now, Joe, 'cause I mean, what is it? While he's been at Stoke, I think that's 3 wins. He's had in 26 league games. At 1 point from the first 6 matches of the season. And you look at their squad on paper, they've got a lot of established players, a lot of Premier League experience, but do you think that's partly the problem? They've come into the Championship, and we know what the Championship's like, don't we?
Yeah, you can't afford to get cocky, especially in this league. And I think Stoke are finding that out the hard way this season.
Yeah. So there we have it, everybody. I mean, that's what we're saying tonight about. There has been a lot of shocks at the start of the season, some surprises at both ends of the table. We currently find ourselves in 18th position, but there's a long way to go. There's 40 matches to go, Joe. Hell of a lot of football to be played. What's for sure is, I think it's not going to be very predictable what happens with the Boro this year, whereas I think you could predict a lot last year. This year, you're not quite sure what you're going to get from week to week, are you?
No, definitely not.
No.
Not with the squad we got.
No. Well, as we say, thanks for watching us on Boro Fan TV. Hopefully next week we'll be able to go out live, so we'll have more interactive stuff and you can get involved with the show, all you viewers out there. Thank you for watching tonight. Joe, thanks for coming on. It's been great to have you back on, mate.
Yep, straight back from Benidorm to this.
Yeah, lovely tropical weather's outside, isn't it? Yeah, it makes you feel right at home. Any of you viewers as well that want to appear on the show in future, please get in touch with us at Boro Fan TV. We'll find a way that we can get you on the show on a Monday night and you can join the crack on the show. Please remember to subscribe to Boro Fan TV on the various platforms and join us for next week's show as we talk about the international break and we look ahead to the clash at the Riverside against Reading. Until then, from us all here at the Longlands, from myself and Joe, good night and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.